History Inside a Nutshell, the show where we sail into our port of call discussing maritime history.
Although this video is a little bit off topic, we are going to be focusing on a person that has a connection to Titanic, but also it is an untold story about a yacht who has a connection to that person that saved millions of lives during the Second World War. Now, I would like to thank my friend Hanna for narrating the video, and as we all know, Hanna has been featured in many of my videos before, but when she knew about this topic, she knew she had to dive into it right away, and I think I couldn't agree more. So Hanna, thank you so much for narrating the video, and if you would like to join my Discord group, the link will be in the description box down below. And now I will leave you in the capable hands of Hanna to talk about the Sundowner.
The Sundowner, the hero of Dunkirk. In 2017, the historical war movie Dunkirk had been released in cinemas. The movie is about the Dunkirk Evacuation, though most of the characters in the film are fictional. One of them is Mr. Dawson, a gentleman who owned a small boat called the Moonstone, which helped to save lives. But did you know that Mr. Dawson was based on a real person who owned a yacht which saved many lives? Although we will reveal the name of the real life person later in the video, we can say that this person owned a motor yacht which is currently being restored in the UK. Despite being a tender ship and only used for the Admiralty, she went on to become one of the most recognisable yachts in British history. This is the story of the Sundowner, the little Dunkirk ship that saved many lives. The Sundowner was built in 1912. It is not known which date or where she was built. It is known that she was originally built for the British Admiralty. During the First World War, she was requisitioned into a capital ship's steam pinnace, or a tender. Her role was to carry war and merchant vessels, though there's no information about what she had done during that time. During her original construction, it was recorded that she was 52 feet long and was fitted with a 60 horsepower, or 45 kilowatt Parson petrol paraffin 4-stroke engine and had a top speed of 8 knots. By the late 1920s, she was in desperate need of repairs, but she was abandoned in the east of River Medway. Her hull was even left in the mud. In 1929, the Sundowner was converted to a motor yacht and was bought for £40, £3,000 in today's money. The man who bought her was Charles Lightoller, who famously survived the Titanic disaster and served as second officer. When she was bought, the Sundowner had been restored, and in addition to this, she was fitted with 2 new masts. In 1936, she went under restoration again when Lightoller replaced her original engine with a Glennifer diesel engine, which would increase her speed by an extra 2 knots, from 21 to 23 knots. With her restoration, the Sundowner was launched on the 28th of June 1930. She had her sea trials down on the Thames before Lightoller commanded her maiden voyage, travelling to France. In the 1930s, Lightoller and his wife took the Sundowner along the northern coast of Europe on holidays and participated in international competitions. When the Second World War broke out, Lightoller was contacted by the Admiralty to take the Sundowner on a secret mission to survey the European coast. In May 1940, after being requisitioned by the Admiralty, they suggested that Lightoller should take it to Ramsgate to be handed over to a Navy crew.
That was on the evening of May the 31st, about 5 o'clock. They rang me up from the Admiralty, chap I knew at the Admiralty, asking could I meet him on board at 7 o'clock. So at 7 o'clock I met him down there. He said the Admiralty were going to requisition her for going over to Dunkirk. They wanted me to take her round to Ramsgate, where they said that a naval crew would take her over. I told them that they had another guest coming. If anybody was going to take her over, well, my eldest son and I were.
With this final decision, Lightoller, his son Roger, and Gerald Ashcroft took the Sundowner to France, where she was to assist in the evacuation of Dunkirk. A day after being requisitioned, the yacht and the trio left Ramsgate and crossed the Channel in the company of other smaller vessels. They arrived in Dunkirk safely, but Lightoller realised that the piers were too high. Despite this, the Sundowner and the destroyer ship named the HMS Worcester began to take on soldiers.
Were you attacked on the way?
Yes, we had lots of fun on the way. The first one was a couple of enemy bombers had a shot at it and Fortunately, HMS Worcester, was just passing us at the time, and she drove them off. But then we had lots of other escapes from bombing and machine gunning until we got over the other side, where I picked up the crew of a small motor cruiser called Westerly. She was well on fire. We picked them off, and she had a couple of 100 gallons of petrol on board, so they said. In any case, when we got about half a mile away from her, she blew up. Next thing was we went through the wreckage and other evidences from a big French transport that had been sunk. That was off Gravelines. Later on into Dunkirk, because I was told that all the men were then off the beaches. So I went into the harbour, and alongside Worcester, I went on board and saw the captain and told him I could take a few men. So he said, how many? Well, I once had 21 on board. I didn't tell him that. I told him, about 100. And so he said, right, take them.
During the evacuation, Ashcroft and the Lightollers managed to take on 75 men to take down into the cabin and 55 men who remained on deck. Her capacity was for 21 passengers. When he saw Lightoller and discovered he was the captain of the Sundowner, one soldier exclaimed, quote, "Bloody hell, I should jump over right now before he sinks this thing," unquote. On our way back to Ramsgate, the Sundowner became the target of a Stuka, a type of aircraft from the German military. Knowing the enemy was upon them, Lightoller stood on the deck watching the Stuka screaming down towards the yacht. It was ready to fire, but the party and the yacht managed to avoid fire through evasive manoeuvres, turning the Sundowner to port away from a bomb which exploded in the water. Upon their return home to Ramsgate, one man recognised Lightoller and jokingly said, quote, "Ain't you the surviving senior officer aboard Titanic?" unquote. Lightoller redeemed himself. When they arrived at Ramsgate to unload the 130 men on board, a CPO, also known as a Chief Petty Officer, cried,
"My God, mate," he said, "where did you put them?"
The Sundowner would later make further trips between Ramsgate and Dunkirk, saving many lives. Following this event, the Sundowner remained in service as a coastal patrol vessel in Essex and helped to guard the Thames estuary. When the war was over, she was returned to Lightoller's as the family boat and had another refit. When Charles Lightoller died in 1952, his wife continued to cruise her, even taking the helm of the yacht on the 25th anniversary of the evacuation in 1965. Following the death of Sylvia Lightoller, the Sundowner was passed down through several owners before it was bought by the East Kent Maritime Trust. She was donated to the Ramsgate Maritime Museum. She became a floating exhibit as part of the museum. In 2012, for its 100th birthday, it participated in the Thames Diamond Jubilee pageant. She also attended the Dunkirk commemoration event in 2015. In September 2022, the Sundowner was in desperate need of repairs and restoration. Because of this, she was transferred into the care of Dennett Shipbuilders in Chertsey. As of 2023, the Sundowner is still undergoing restoration. The story of the Sundowner is one of bravery and courage. And although some people criticised Charles Lightoller's role during the Titanic disaster, his reputation was likely restored during the evacuation of Dunkirk. We don't know when the Sundowner will be finished, but we hope that she will be restored successfully and be on display again for generations to come.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe for future videos. Until next time, this has been History Inside a Nutshell, departing from the docks. Thank you so much for all of your support and enjoy the rest of your voyage.